Imagine this. You take 5 pet kittens and release them on an uninhabited island. What could possibly go wrong? Now imagine that this seemingly harmless act triggered one of the bloodiest environmental disasters of the 20th century and forced people to wage an actual war. How did a deserted speck of land turn into a battlefield in just a few years? Let us figure it out together. This story takes place on Marion Island. It is a small chunk of cooled lava in the southern Indian Ocean. Picture a harsh, cold, windy place, truly at the ends of the earth, and it belongs to the Republic of South Africa. The island covers about 290 square kilometres. What we have here is a volcanic massif where mosses, lichens and short grass grow. The climate is brutal, constant gale force winds, rain and fog. The temperature rarely climbs above 10 degrees. Until the 1940s, this was a completely untouched world where there had never been any land predators. Millions of seabirds, albatrosses, petrels, storm petrels, and penguins raised their young here for centuries, never fearing any threat from the ground. Marion birds evolved in total safety. The only danger waited in the water, where leopard seals hunted, and in the sky where birds of prey circled. But on land they felt like the unquestioned rulers. Some species even lost the ability to run fast because there was simply no need. The island was a nesting site for 28 species of seabirds. Some of them existed nowhere else on the planet. It was an extremely rare wildlife sanctuary, one of the last truly untouched corners of Earth. But after World War II, everything changed. The era of active scientific expeditions to Antarctica and the sub-Antarctic islands began. Countries competed for influence in these distant points, staking claims to research and to future resources. In 1948, the Republic of South Africa established a permanent meteorological station on Marion Island. Scientists were supposed to monitor weather, ocean currents, and climate in a strategically important zone. The station consisted of several wooden and metal buildings where 10 to 20 people lived and worked year-round. Life was Spartan, and supplies arrived only once a year on a research vessel. However, along with people, equipment, and provisions, unwanted passengers made it to the island, ship mice. These rodents had travelled on ships for centuries, spread all over the world, and became one of the most successful mammal species on the planet. In the warm, sheltered station buildings, where there were no natural enemies, the mice found an almost perfect home. There was plenty of food, there were no threats, the walls and roof protected them from the weather, and all of that led to an explosive population boom. Very quickly, the mice became a real nightmare for the station residents. They spoiled food, chewed through electrical wires, damaged scientific instruments, and destroyed paperwork. At night, the rodents rustled inside the walls and raced across the floor, keeping people from sleeping normally. For researchers living in total isolation at the edge of the world, this became a genuine disaster. Imagine being thousands of kilometers from civilization, while tiny animals methodically wreck everything around you. Something had to be done. Fast. The solution seemed obvious and time-tested. For thousands of years, people kept cats specifically to fight rodents. From ancient Egypt to modern warehouses and farms, cats remained indispensable helpers in controlling mice and rats. In 1949, a special living shipment was brought to Marion Island. Just 5 domestic cats, 4 females and 1 male. No one even remotely understood what this seemingly reasonable decision would lead to. The plan was simple and clear. The cats live at the station, hunt mice and keep them from multiplying. And people in turn feed them and provide protection. A classic human-animal alliance, built over thousands of years. At first, everything worked perfectly. The cats quickly adjusted to the new place and started actively catching mice near the station. The rodent problem seemed to vanish almost immediately. The scientists were thrilled with how well their idea worked. But pretty soon the cats started going farther out, exploring territory beyond the buildings. And what they found out there changed the fate of Marion Island forever. Outside the station walls, a predator's paradise awaited them. Helpless prey was everywhere. The local birds had never encountered land predators. They never developed instincts that tell them to be on alert and run for their lives. They calmly sat on their nests and walked around on the ground, barely reacting as cats approached. To the cats, it looked like unbelievable abundance. Picture a predator that suddenly enters a world where prey practically ends up in its paws. Hunting birds was so much easier than chasing quick, skittish mice that the cats rapidly switched to a new food source. The consequences showed up very fast. The cat population started growing at a stunning rate. In nature, predator populations are usually limited by the amount of prey. But on Marion Island, there was so much prey that this natural limit stopped working. The reproduction rate was phenomenal. Biologists calculated that the population grew by about 23% per year. That meant doubling every 3 years. 5 cats became 10, then 20, then 40. Over time, the cats quickly went feral. Generations born on the island no longer depended on people. They adapted to the harsh climate, found shelter in lava caves and cracks, and could hunt in almost any weather. By the early 1960s, just 10 years after the first cats appeared, there were already hundreds of them. And 20 years later, the situation became catastrophic. The island was literally crawling with feral cats. By the mid-1970s, about 25 or 26 years after the first 5 animals arrived, more than 2,100 feral cats were living on the island. It was one of the densest feral cat populations in the world. The scale of the ecological disaster they caused is hard to even imagine. By careful estimates from scientists and ornithologists, the cats killed about 450,000 seabirds every year. Let that number sink in. 450,000 birds a year. That is more than 1,200 birds per day. That is about 50 birds every hour. That is roughly 2 birds every 2.5 minutes. And it went on around the clock, without stopping, year after year. The island turned into a massive slaughterhouse. Picture that landscape. A place that once roared with the cries of millions of birds began to fall silent. Colonies that had existed for thousands of years disappeared one after another. Feathers, wrecked nests, and bones were everywhere. Large seabirds that lay only 1 egg per year were hit especially hard. Albatrosses, giant petrels, Cape pigeons, all of them quickly ended up at risk. The cats raided nests, killed chicks, and sometimes even attacked adult birds. Some species, like the common diving petrel, came right up to the edge of complete disappearance on the island. A colony that once numbered hundreds of thousands of pairs shrank to a few thousand. It already looked like a planet-scale catastrophe. The scientists at the station watched what was happening with growing horror. They saw the island die year after year. Their simple solution to the mouse problem had created a monster that methodically destroyed a unique ecosystem. Back in the 1960s, researchers began sounding the alarm. They published papers, wrote reports, and warned about the disaster closing in. But decisions came slowly. The island was far away, and many people saw the problem as local. Only by the mid-1970s, when the scale of the disaster could no longer be ignored, did South African authorities finally decide to act. It became clear that if the cats were not stopped, Marion's unique fauna would be wiped out completely and irreversibly. But how do you deal with 2,000 feral cats on an island of almost 300 square kilometres? The terrain was covered with lava fields full of countless hiding places. The weather constantly got in the way. Ordinary trapping methods simply did not deliver results. The first attempt to fix the situation was as cunning as the problem itself. In 1977, scientists decided to use biological weapons against a biological threat. They brought the feline panleukopenia virus to the island. This deadly disease, also known as feline distemper, causes high fever, vomiting, diarrhea, and rapid death. The virus is extremely contagious and spreads easily between cats through contact and through the environment. The plan worked, but only partly. The epidemic did sweep the island and over several years cut the cat population by more than half. Thousands of animals died painfully. It seemed like the trouble was starting to fade on its own. But the surviving cats were either naturally resistant to the virus from the start or gained immunity after illness. And fairly soon their numbers began to rise again, slowly but steadily. The biological weapon provided only a temporary breather. It became completely clear that half measures were powerless. They needed a total, unconditional elimination of every cat on the island without exceptions. Even one pregnant female could erase all efforts and rebuild the population from scratch. Then a harsh and unprecedented decision was made: launch a large-scale program of physical elimination of all remaining cats. That is how a real war of humans against cats began, one of the largest invasive species eradication campaigns in history. In 1986, a group of professional hunters landed on Marion Island. A systematic sweep of the territory began. This was not just hunting, it became almost a military operation with strategy, tactics, and logistics. The hunters were equipped with modern rifles, night sights, and powerful spotlights. They worked mostly at night when cats are most active. The island was divided into sections, and they combed through it sector by sector. The work was exhausting and dangerous. The hunters travelled on foot across rugged volcanic ground and constantly ran into brutal weather. Rain, wind, fog, and cold made everything nearly unbearable. But they kept pushing the mission forward. The cats proved to be a worthy opponent. Years of living in the wild made them clever, cautious, and incredibly tough. They learned to avoid people, hide in the most inaccessible places, and hunt almost silently. The shooting operation dragged on for several years. At first the numbers dropped quickly, but then the pace fell sharply. The smartest, most cautious animals remained, and they already recognized danger and slipped away from the hunters. By the end of the 1980s, most of the population had been destroyed, but a small group of nearly uncatchable cats still remained. To reach them, additional measures were brought in: poisoned bait and special traps. The search for an elimination of the last cats on Marion Island continued until 1991. Almost 15 years had passed since the first attempt at biological control. And only when for nearly 2 straight years no one managed to spot a single cat did the island officially get declared predator-free. The war was won. The last cat on Marion Island was destroyed. This became the largest and one of the most successful invasive cat eradication programs in human history. But at what cost? The operation took years of hard work and millions of dollars. The island's ecosystem was crippled, and some bird species never fully recovered. The marks of this ecological tragedy stayed for a long time. Populations of the surviving birds began to return slowly. The species that had been on the brink of extinction got a chance to hold on. The island gradually came back to life, though it will never be what it once was. But there is a main and bitter irony in this whole story. After the complete destruction of cats on Marion Island, the same original problem remained, the one it all started with: mice, those same shipborne rodents. With their only predator gone, the mouse population exploded with a new, unprecedented force. Now there were dozens of times more than in 1949, and these mice started doing what the cats used to do. They began attacking seabird eggs and chicks. Large species suffered especially badly, including albatrosses. The mice learned to chew through shells and even attacked live chicks, literally eating them alive. And now, decades after the victory over the cats, Marion Island is preparing for a new operation, even bigger and more expensive. This time it is about the complete unitogeny of mice. The circle has closed in the worst possible way. So what do you think about this story? Were people right to unitogit all the cats? Could a disaster like this have been prevented? What would you have done in the scientist's place in 1949? Share your opinion in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your perspective.